How are you brothers doing, by the way? Staying safe? Everyone healthy?
Yes, yes. Hopefully,
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah.
every time I go out, I have in back of my mind, I say, if I wake up and feel a slight thing in my, I'm gonna know it's because I went to the store. Or, every time you go out, you're wondering, is today the
Yeah,
day I wake up tomorrow with something? It's
yeah. Same here. Cause I work. Have to. Although most people are on lockdown, but I have to work, and and permitted to also.
yeah, yeah. How about
uh,
it? Yeah.
that thought is always at the back of the head. Have I brought something back home? Because I don't live by myself. I live with my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fear is there. So the couple of things that I do is that I have extra supplements in the morning and have uh, healthiest possible options of breakfast. Um, yeah, lots of vitamin C and other supplements. And also, before going to sleep, I put on things that Islamically we are taught would help us.
Let me do the intro real quick, brother.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon everyone who's watching or listening. This is Kenny Bowmer Live. Consider this TV where truth is made clear from falsehood. My name is Kenny Bowmer. I'm the author of the book Consider Islam Disproving the Patriot Propaganda. And this is the after show, Ask a Muslim Session 3 after show. And so we're going to try to engage some Christians here momentarily. So let us go ahead and let the feed go live on YouTube, and we'll begin with that. So, all right, brothers, assalamu alaikum. We're back live, and we'll see if Danny Davis.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So he may have, we closed out the regular show, so we'll see what happens. And I'll send a message there to tell him that we'll let him in.
Yeah. This is the after show for trolls. No, I'm just kidding. We invite all trolls at this point. They're allowed. No. Let's see what Daniel Davis said. But no, Devon,
Earlier that I wouldn't
he's
let
a
him
little
in.
bit better, I guess.
For him. We couldn't answer any of his questions. Not a one. We couldn't answer any of his questions. Come on, Danny Davis. Kind of a reach. So we'll let him come in, and we'll see what happens.
You know what, brother, while we're waiting for him, here's the issue with people like him, right? They expect us to have a ability, no, even though we're convinced about Islam, to have an open mind and to second guess ourselves. Is it possible that we're wrong? But I want to know, is he coming to this show with that same openness that he requires of us, or he expects, or at least hopes from us? And that's why I asked him, what is it that we can show you? What is there anything in the world that would convince him Islam is the truth? If not, then we're wasting our time. And we can agree respectfully, we're wasting our time. If there's nothing we can show you, what is it that we can show him? That Islam.
My guess is there's nothing that we can show him. I could be wrong.
But then it'll be a quick show if he says that.
I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think there's anything we can show him just based on the interactions thus far. But Allah knows best. We just need to be patient and try to.
You know what's fascinating about the Quran is that it's got a falsification test. I don't think any other book, a religious book in history, has something that you could do to prove it false. If this was from other than Allah, you would find many contradictions, or bring a surah like it, or it says the Christians will be nicer to or closer to the Muslim Ummah than the Jews, right? The Jews could have used that and said, "Oh, we're going to be nice to you. We'll prove your book false," right? So it's like when you're talking to a Christian or a Hindu and you ask them, "Is there something in your book that I could do to prove it false?" People don't think that way.
And ask even, does their book even urge you to think like that? And I would argue it doesn't. But the Quran constantly speaks to that.
Yeah.
It asks
No
you
book
to
does
think,
that.
is this true?
Yeah.
Is this not? What would we expect if it was true? The Quran talks a lot about those types of things.
The Quran is unique in the history of religion, in that the Revelation, the book, engages its readers directly, as if it's as if it's interacting with you. And this is a novel thing in the history of religion. All other books are written in prose, as if you're reading a storybook. The Quran is apart from that.
Alhamdulillah. So, Brother Kareem, I made you co-host because I need to do my salat
No,
real quick.
I think you made brother Ibn Anwar co-host, if I can
Okay.
read correctly.
No,
Okay,
you
bro.
should make Kareem. Yeah, I'm not good at hosting.
I didn't have my glasses on. I'm looking at the smaller screen, and I can't see small text.
Okay,
Okay, so yeah, I'll switch it up, inshallah.
absolutely.
Okay, so draw code. Okay. Okay, so Kareem, you're a co-host now, and so you have to watch the participants. I don't know if do y'all hear the chime when someone comes into the room?
I may hear it now
Yeah,
that you made me.
Okay.
yeah. As a co-host, that alert will pop up, and you as an admin would be able to allow the person to come in or not. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I don't see him in the YouTube channel right now, but he might have went out whenever we closed out the other one. But
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm going to go ahead and
Yeah.
do my prayer, and then
Yes, and I
Yep.
have something I could bring up that it may be interesting. So the brothers who are still here with me, right before I came, I was visiting the other Zoom discussion with what is called, I guess, the Cross and the Crescent with Eric Smith. Not sure if you guys are blocked by him or have blocked him, but there's a lot of course, contention between the two Zoom shows. but I visited, and they were speaking about the Trinity in the Old Testament. And the guy Anthony Rogers, who was giving a presentation, I mean, he literally, I mean, I don't know how long he was speaking, right? Trying to prove this thing. And he's taking you through and all of it is figurative language. The arm of God, things like that, and it's like you're waiting for him to say, there it is, there's the Trinity, keywords that you look for when someone is teaching something, because as a teacher, you want to re-emphasize the big principles of whatever you're teaching. And then that's good to do, especially if you want your students to memorize them. But he would go from subject to subject. There were no, here it is, there it is, the Trinity. He even admitted that there's no verse that says it all within one verse, and he even made it very, very simple. He said that the Trinity is just two parts. God is one, but it's three distinct persons. So he was even able to articulate it in two words, but at the same time, he says his God wasn't able to bring these two concepts together in one verse, right? You have to find it all in different places, and then just interpret it that way. But I would say that I would definitely want to hear what you brothers have to say about that. But I think the biggest thing was one of the big things is that when he began to mention the Old Testament and what he saw as an explanation or a little bit of a clarification or indication of the Trinity, he missed the first verse that would be, I think it would be, important for the discussion, which is the very first verse of Genesis. And I wrote in the chat that it's funny that he starts the discussion and he doesn't mention this very first verse that has a plurality indicated in the usage of the word Elohim, right? And I wanted him to fall into this trap. He totally avoided the verse. I mean, he's talking about all these other verses that indicate a plurality of person, but he forgot to mention that in the beginning, the word, the book uses Elohim, which literally means gods with an S. And of course, we know that's contrary to the Trinitarian doctrine. They don't believe in gods. They believe in three persons in one God. Just the persons are what, the Trinity. But now here's the thing. How is it that he would neglect to even explain the very first verse that has an indication of some type of plurality if we're in the discussion? But the other thing is, when I asked him this, he actually explained this verse using an Islamic explanation. He said that if you see the verb is singular, therefore you would understand that this, this Elohim is not God's, but it's, the one who is indicated, by the verbs is actually singular. So in one place, he's not as open to see the Trinity in that verse, but in other places, it's like, there is nothing that makes him stop himself and say, is this maybe metaphorical? Is this maybe figurative? Is it still the one God? And this is, I have to understand this some other way, or is this really, indicating a Trinity? But anything you would like to say, brothers, about the whole issue of the Trinity being in the Old Testament, because maybe they'll see this broadcast after.
Yeah. Well, one of the we've brought up very good points there. And Genesis 1:1 is a favorite. Not just that, any verse that has God being addressed as Elohim, such verses are beloved by a lot of Trinitarians when they try to prove the Trinity. But one of the foremost Trinitarian theologians today, as many evangelist Christians would agree, is none other than William Lane Craig, Dr. William Lane Craig, right? And he has come forward to say unambiguously that if you go by only the Old Testament, then the Trinity is not going to be found. Let's hear what he says from the horse's mouth, right? Just about a minute.
Okay.
Let's pick up there, Bill, and talk about.
Is it clear?
Yes.
So it's this is on Faith Under Fire. So he's talking to Rabbi Tovias, Rabbi Tovias, right, who was the chief rabbi of Indonesia. I think he's gone back to Israel. I'm not sure, but yeah, let's see what Dr. William Lane Craig says here about the Trinity being found in the Old Testament.
About the Trinity, what is it exactly, and why is it important to Christians?
Well, I think it is importantly to begin first by defining what we're talking about. The Trinity is the doctrine that in God there are three persons in one being.
And why is this important to Christians?
Well, because it's true. It means that Jesus Christ is God. He is equally God with the Father, and that the Holy Spirit is also God, equally with the Father and the Son, and that these three are distinct persons, but all God, and that they carry out different roles in the plan of man's redemption. The Father sends the Son dies on the cross to atone for our sins and bring us into reconciliation with God. The Holy Spirit gives us spiritual life and sanctification for living a life pleasing to God. So all three of the persons are involved in daily Christian living.
Okay, Tovia, you disagree. Why?
I'm an Orthodox rabbi. We believe that the Hebrew Bible alone is divinely inspired and is absolutely trustworthy. And therefore, it is these texts that we look to say, what does God say about his nature? What does the Almighty share? And all you do is look at Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. You know, these are the first words that a little Jewish boy, a little Jewish girl learn. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Why don't we have a clear text anywhere in the Hebrew Bible that gives us the Nicene Creed, the very clear statement of a triune doctrine? It's found nowhere in the Hebrew Bible. Our salvation depends on worshiping God in truth. And therefore, let's look at the Bible itself.
That's a fair question. Bill, how would you respond to that? It seems to me, it comes down to the question of, is the New Testament trustworthy? Does it contradict, though, what the Old Testament is saying?
I think that's exactly right, Lee. We're coming at this question from two different sets of scripture or wholly inspired writings. And I would agree with Tovia that if you approach this question simply on the basis of the Hebrew Bible or what we would call the Old Testament, one wouldn't come to believe that God is a Trinity.
Again.
And I would agree with Tovia that if you approach this question simply on the basis of the Hebrew Bible or what we would call the Old Testament, one wouldn't come to believe that God is a Trinity.
There you have it. and he is regarded a jewel in evangelism today, right? One of the foremost of Christian evangelists alive, highly regarded. And of course, his statement here is founded on, because he is a scholar, right? We recognize that he is a scholar. And his statement here reflects his understanding of a historical fact, a historical truth undeniable, that Jews for more than 1,000 years using the Old Testament never came to an idea where God is triune. Therefore, the Old Testament doesn't teach the Trinity. I mean, it's amazing that you think that you read a book for some decades and you come up with something that people have been reading for more than 1,000 years never came to.
And also, this whole discussion is only even possible if you assume that every single thing in the Old Testament is not the embellishment of some Jew who had the scripture of God, but also wanted to add,
Indeed.
Some glorification of his tribe, of his people, of, you have to already pre assume that the whole book is from God. So, and of course, Muslims, you don't even need the Quran to have some doubts when you read a verse that says, that how can we say that we have the law of Yahweh when the lying hands of the scribes have falsified it? Jews was having trouble with the authenticity of the entire, belief system. So, what are Muslims to do in that case? But yes, absolutely. Great point. I didn't think to bring that up because Anthony Rogers also, I would consider him a person who studies. But here's the thing, a person like William Lane Craig, even though he punched himself in the face in that case, in general, it's always nice, or it's always reassuring when you see a scholar able to say, I may be wrong, or he says a statement that goes against his best interest, because then you get a glimpse of sincerity. You see some of these guys who are wrong and they know they're wrong and we know they're wrong and they know that we know they're wrong, but they would never concede. And then everything they say to us becomes suspect. We can't take anything now because the things that, you could just say, you know what, I'm going to look into that again. I do have a problem with that, or, anything. There's no sincerity with a lot of these guys. That's why I like Ronnie. Ronnie, he comes, he asks his questions.
Yeah.
He's not, it's just sincere about that.
Yeah, and also to substantiate what you were saying, that Jews may have embellished things or put their own things into what was perceived as the word of God to glorify their own tribe. This can be seen rather well it's well illustrated in Genesis 9, where you have the incident of Noah, this post-flood, right, after the flood, that according to this story, he got drunk. And of course, as Muslims, we free ourselves from this blameworthy allegation against one of the great messengers of God that he fell drunk. But according to this story, and you can see why this story is fraudulent, there's a point to it. And the drunkenness of Noah is essential to the story, for the story to have any sense to it. But in fact, there is no sense to it because we can see the embellishment that you mentioned. So Noah, according to the story, falls drunk, right? Let's have a look at verse number 20. Verse number 22. Or rather, verse number 20. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. So he started planting a vineyard. This is the rendering of the NIV. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk, and he lay uncovered, became naked inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness, or saw his father naked, and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces would turn the other way so that they would not see their father naked. Verse number 24, when Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." You see a problem here?
Yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a moral problem. There's so many problems there.
You can see how the story was fixed at the outset, at the beginning, right? And by the time you reach the concluding part of this essential section of the whole narrative, you think, yeah, it makes sense. Canaan, okay, who's Canaan? He's associated with Ham because he's mentioned together with Ham, the father of Canaan. But when Shem and Japheth, his siblings, are mentioned, they are not associated with their offspring. Why is that? Why is Ham, although who's Canaan? Who's Ham? You see, Canaan comes after. Canaan did not exist yet in this story. And yet there is Canaan being mentioned before he even existed as being the son of Ham.
Right.
Why? Because we know the relationship between the Canaanites and the Jews.
Right.
They were enemies of each other.
Right.
And here is the basis of, or the justification for the Jews to be abhorrent towards the Canaanites, because they were cursed, because their forefather Ham did something very bad, and Noah cursed the offspring of Ham, that they be cursed and be the lowest of the slaves, and he will be a slave to his brothers. And that was the purpose of the Canaanites, to be below the feet of the Jews.
Yes.
And also, we know that this story is fabricated because Canaan was not there.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
historically,
It was Ham that was
wasn't-
there, right? And if Ham did the offense, then it should be Ham that is cursed. It is Ham that should be blameworthy, not Canaan, who was not even there.
Right. And but then even before that,
without thinking critically, might think that Ham and Canaan are one and the same because they are mentioned together. Ham, the father of Canaan. Ham, the
Right.
father of Canaan. Yeah.
right. But also, brother Ibn Anwar, I'm going to give you the opportunity to explain from a Christian point of view. Like, try to make it make sense for us. If you could play devil advocate here, because we want to be fair. Why in the world would someone see it moral? Because of course, Noah cannot curse anyone without the will of God, right? It's ultimately
Exactly.
going to be
That
God's
also, yeah.
power who curses. But we're going to then ask, how is this merciful God, who is part of the triune, one of them is the Prince of Peace, right? Why would he be in agreement in terms of cursing a person for putting clothes on a naked person? What was his sin? What did he do wrong that he would deserve to be cursed? Am I missing something, or what is going on there?
Well, I'm not sure how I would succeed in playing the devil's advocate in this regard. Because
Right. How do they explain
I've
this?
looked at this passage carefully, and it's really difficult to come up with any reasonable explanation, even if you're coming from the Christian camp. And you've asked a good question. What exactly happened? So verse 22 says that Ham here saw his father naked and told his two brothers about it. So the Jewish interpreters say that Ham actually jibed about what he saw.
No, jokingly.
Yeah.
That would be an important description word, I think, that should be used there. I mean, the Quran talks about yastahzi'un, they make fun, because you're left wondering, hey, this guy did a good act. I mean, if I seen one of my parents laying around, at least you can do is cover them up. That's the least good you can do. How are you cursed then?
So textually here, if one were to not consider the interpretation, the traditional interpretation, then the text would appears to indicate that Ham did nothing to resolve the apparent problem that is the father's nakedness. Instead of doing something about it, he just left the father like that. He went out and told his two brothers about it. It was his two brothers, Sham and Japheth, who came to intervene, and after they were informed of the situation, to cover the father's nakedness. Ham did not do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So for a little, a not even an action, but the absence of doing a
Inaction.
good deed got a person cursed to that extent.
Yeah,
And
and
isn't it
inaction.
similar? This exaggerated kind of story that really leaves you wondering how can this be the merciful God is also paralleled with the story of the 40 boys who are torn to pieces by a bear.
Yeah. Yes.
What is going
Exactly.
on there? I really, it's beyond me. I'm not sure if you're still there, but I can't hear.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. Anyway, so the brother's coming back soon. Yeah, if anybody else wants to chime in, I know brother Yahya is in a different time zone, very late for him. He has his coffee mug there.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm
Drinking
listening. I'm just listening. There's nothing to do, so I will sleep after Fajr.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
now almost 2. So that
Oh,
will be,
yes.
it will, I have 2 hours still remaining.
Okay. Well, while I got you here, let me mention that the project we're working on. So and this is outside of the conversation really quickly. I tried a few times, more than once, to record. And now what happens is with the certain article that we were going to make our video on, the speech of it is so it would require me to edit a lot of it, and it will require a lot of time. Now I see you guys put together, you and Kenny put together a video based on his book. Now if he would also be in conjunction with us, I think that maybe because he probably, before he edited his book, really reviewed the language of it. Does it flow well? I would think that maybe we could take an excerpt of his book and I could narrate it and then send it over to you. That would probably be quicker for us. If you're
What
okay.
we'll do,
We'll
inshallah,
discuss
brother
that.
Kareem. So he is planning, mashallah, brother Kenny is planning to record his book by himself. So inshallah, we're going to the chapter by chapter. Yeah. So what we will do, inshallah, maybe we'll find a different article, because alhamdulillah, when you open this channel, we have answered most of the question. We are like running out of the subject. I don't know what to upload really, because
Right.
most of the question they ask question, there's nothing new. They repeat the same question, same nonsense again and again. So
Yeah.
but inshallah we'll try to find something good if we can get chance. But okay, it's fine. But there's nothing new really, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're not
What's
bringing
funny? You know what's funny that made me laugh? I'm recording, right? And again, like this is an example how I had to take into consideration that this was written in a certain context. So I'm reading, and it said some of the Christian what did it say? Some of the Christian some of the Christian missionaries. And then it said like silly, and then it gave a name, and I'm going to read it, and I'm like, should I say this person's silly? I don't even know who this is. So you understand? I gotta edit it to it sounds good more generally rather than.
So inshallah we will leave this, because that mashallah you have recorded the hypocrisy of Christian. Like this was amazing. But inshallah what we'll do, we'll try to find some new article. But alhamdulillah, most of them were narrated in the don't bring Christian. I mean the Trinity guys, they don't bring anything new.
Yeah.
We were looking for something, inshallah, to do some new work, inshallah. But alhamdulillah, this is a good platform.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this, that a lot of times what can be beneficial on the whole when it comes to us making videos sometimes is going with the current events. Because a lot of times people are looking for responses, for example, to current debates. So, and of course, we would have to then write a new article. But I just wanted to give that idea also because like you said, there's so many topics that they bring up, and I know we have articles for days, and it just really comes down to how an article translates to actually being narrated. Sometimes it's a big difference because you got to make pauses. You got to emphasize certain words, and certain words just don't make sense. For example, for me to refer to silly Sully or whatever the person's name was, right? And the article's calling this person silly. And I said, wow, should I say this? So yeah, but we'll work on it. We'll work on
Inshallah,
it.
we'll try. Because mashallah, what I'm waiting for currently, brother Akil is busy. Mashallah, he's written extremely amazing article. Wallahi. The proof for Prophet, like Prophet Wood of Prophet Muhammad, this thing is gem. Wallahi, I need to trying to get brother Akil, because mashallah, what he was trying to do, he was covering the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad before his prophethood, like how there are some proof that indicating before his birth he was Rasulullah, and during his lifetime and after his lifetime. So it is a beautiful, actually is written in without evidences, but inshallah I'm trying to get in. But other than alhamdulillah, most of the time, and especially those articles are referring to certain people, but there's no point in narrating them. We'll try to put this book on, like the Kenny's book on online, but other than that, Christian man, this is they would now, brother. What I noticing, actually, you guys were discussing about the um, you and brother, what's the name of this brother? Yes, wait, yeah. Yes. So you guys were discussing the mentality of non-Muslim. Now they're coming with a new drama. When you refute their argument, they say, okay, we guys were trapping you. Like this is what recently. Have you watched the new video David Wood? So I don't know, brother Farid responded. He said, this is a trick we guys are putting you, because what they thought the Muslim can't answer him. So when we answer them, say this was a trap, by the way. Same thing with new, like this, the freaking Gondal. Who is this guy? Non-Muslim, made an expert of Quran, Jalaluddin Suyuti. You don't know anything. This is the same thing. Like when you refute the argument, they say this was a trap. This is what we want. And this people. Now I'm tired of hearing the nonsense arguments. I just
No, that's good, brother. We ask Allah to bless you for your work. I know you have always been, and I've seen your channel has grown. Am I correct? You're up to 2,000. If I check, you got 2,000 subscribers.
I think almost 3.
Yeah. And I seen that actually today, because like I said, I checked out the video that Kenny has with you in conjunction with you, and really nice video, like always. Also,
what's your channel? Yeah. What's your channel? Yeah.
It's the Incognito Islamic Production. Incognito Islam. Yes. So we can, like, do you know how we came up with this name? So, like, Akil was having a debate with a Christian prince. Within this debate, what Christian prince was saying, this idiot, while Akil was talking, I was in the toilet. So we made it. So what we did, this Akil is debating with you. What are you doing in the toilet? So we made it. So within my name, so we can Akil. So now we need to make a channel in this name. Okay, Abdul. I will mute myself.
Yeah. Okay. Alhamdulillah. على أي حال, brother Yahya, how is your Arabic studies going?
Alhamdulillah. Why are the voices like I'm hearing my voice?
It's got
I'm
to be the
also
connection.
hearing that.
Yeah, it's feedback.
Let me see if it's. Hold on one second.
It's not me. I got headphones on.
Oh, someone. It's not on my end, so someone may have their.
No, I'm not hearing anything. Except your
Someone's
voice.
messing with your mind.
No, when this very difficult to talk.
Is someone listening via YouTube?
It's Danny Davis. He's hacked the stream.
The ghost of Danny Davis has infiltrated.
Okay, let's and we'll find out who it is. Okay, so I'm talking right now. Do y'all hear feedback?
No.
No.
No, it's fine.
Not me.
Maybe it's from your side. Again.
Say something, Yahya.
I can hear my voice. I don't know why. No, now it's fine. If I'm talking, I think it's fine. But maybe it's coming from who's with Anwar. I don't know.
Let me put
Okay,
you on
now
mute.
me. How about me? Am I good?
Ibn Anwar, say something.
Assalamu
There
alaikum.
it is.
It's-
Is it from me?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know where. I don't know where.
Okay, let me put everyone on mute one more time. And so, can you, brother? Do you hear it now? Do you hear it now?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. So someone must. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube or something like that, and maybe getting a feedback from there. So, but somehow, okay, Kareem, let's go through. We'll go to Kareem.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so say a few more words, and we'll see what happens with it.
I'm here.
Okay, you're okay. It's not happening with you. Ibn Anwar, you're next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here also, and I think Kenny is awesome, Kareem is awesome, and Yahya is awesome. Everybody here is awesome. Is it me then?
No, not you. Okay, so
Now it's my turn. Okay. Yeah, also it's fine. I can
yeah,
hear my
Mukeet, so it's not him.
Yeah, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it's not you. Okay, maybe who knows?
It's
Maybe
the
it's-
ghost of David.
Maybe it's Jen. The Jen possesses the room. I don't know why.
It could be the gin of the Holy Ghost or something. I don't know.
Oh, you know, Devon, he really drilled into us. We need the link between hearing and so maybe it's him. You know, he's working his magic somewhere.
It might have been a glitch.
Yeah, so I encourage you, brother, if you could share the link. Share the link, and also on YouTube, go to my YouTube channel and share the link via YouTube with other people, so we can try to, inshallah, try to build the platform.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I'm
Oh, you know what, brother? While I have you here, and we're not really discussing a matter that is already preordained for us. But so I wanted to say that, and this is just for me and you. When you have time, I want to set up a quick recording so we can record something for my channel, because that would make sense that at least I can put your logo and a quick message from me and you onto my channel, so that way those subscribers there, once they see it, they can go ahead and subscribe to you. Because I have one thing at least that has you in the video, the last video I put up, but there's nothing urging people or inviting people to go to your channel also, or the like. So whenever you have time.
With Brother Yahya, Incognito Islamic Productions. I don't know if your brother's seen the video that he made with the excerpt of my
yes,
chapter in my book.
Yeah, I want to download that, if it's by your permission. Download it and then put that one up on my channel also.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. No
All right,
problem with
sounds
that
good.
at all. And,
I haven't seen that, but I just 'cause I just asked them what that channel is. Yeah, I just had a look at it, and it looks good. I'll have a look at it. I mean, the video that you mentioned later.
Yeah, let me just play it briefly, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to play it just quickly, inshallah. It'll be more. Let me see here. Okay, so let me, brother. He did a good job on it, and it's something that I needed, anyways. And okay, so bear with me 1 second. So y'all can see it right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Let me get that out. Let me get that out. Okay, here we go.
Welcome to Incognito Islamic Productions.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. My name is Kenny Balmer. I'm the author of the book Consider Islam, Disproving the Patriots of Propaganda. As a student of comparative religions, I have studied both Islam and Christianity extensively, and though I don't claim to be a scholar or historian, I pray that with the help of Allah, blessed and exalted is He, I can convey the truth about both religions. It is also my intention to address the slanderous claims of atheists and known Islamophobes from a reasonable and logical perspective, while distinguishing false and erroneous information from that which is factual regarding the truth and beauty of Islam. My intention is to demonstrate why it is that Islam is the fastest growing religion in every country throughout the world. The Pew Research Center says, and I quote, Islam will nearly equal Christianity in its number of followers by 2050, before eclipsing it around the year 2070 if current trends continue. End of quote. On average, there have been 30,000 new reverts to Islam each year in the United States, most of whom are women, since the infamous 9/11 attacks carried out by those who have been wrongly labeled as Muslims. This rise in followers can be associated with the fact that before the 9/11 attacks, most people had very little knowledge about Islam and seldom heard the word mentioned. But the impact of 9/11 has caused a curiosity to arise in people for various reasons, with one of those being the fallacious desire to understand why and how a religion could cause people to commit murder in the name of that religion. Those who can set aside their fears and prejudices in order to be earnest seekers of the truth will come to the realization that there is nothing in Islam that influences people to commit acts of terrorism or any other type of oppression. This is not to imply that some so-called Muslims never commit acts of terrorism. The fact is, there are people in the world who are willing to use anything that they can in order to achieve and justify their actions in fulfilling their agendas. That includes the use of religion. But nothing in Islam, the Quran, or Hadith, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, says anything about killing people unjustly or for any other reason other than self-defense or the defense of others. But people have been led to believe differently due to the constant attacks on Islam through various forms of propaganda. The ability to see through the smokescreen of the never-relenting campaign of fear is crucial. One must be capable of understanding that propaganda and the dissemination of false information has and always will be utilized to sway the masses. This is done in order to achieve the desired goals of those in power that seem to be determined to normalize bigotry and hatred, as xenophobia combines with Islamophobia, causing division amongst various groups in society. Once again, my name is Kenny Bomer. I am the author of the book Consider Islam Disproving the Patriots of Propaganda. If you would like a copy of the book, you can go to Amazon, look up Kenny Bomer, or look up Consider Islam, or you can go directly to my website, kennybomer.com. Once again, I thank you for listening. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon everyone who's listening. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's very well made.
Yeah.
What a great video. Yes, very well made. And the narration was very peaceful. I like that.
Yeah.
We're going to work it. We're working on the project.
Excellent diction, I have to say. Yeah.
We're going to do the entire book. It's something I wanted to do anyways. I needed audio to the book. And we're getting feedback again. I think it's Ibn Anwar. I'm not sure.
Is it me then?
I don't know.
Should I exit and come back and see if that?
You seem well.
I'm not sure who it is.
I hear it.
I have no clue. Okay.
I don't hear anything. I mean, I hear you well.
You hear me fine right now?
Yeah.
Even Anwar, are you on headphones?
Nope. I'm using my phone. Let's see if I put myself on mute and see if
Daniel Davis is just.
Yeah, Danny Davis has just come in. So let's see if he can conduct himself like a gentleman today. We'll try to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I gotta go pray, inshallah ta'ala. I'll be back.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Well, hello there, Daniel Davis.
Let me unmute him. Danny Davis.
Hello, gentlemen. How you doing today?
We're good.
Very
good evening. How you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
All right. Good to hear. Good to hear.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I actually wasn't going to call in because I'm about to leave, but I did just hear that that you had up there, Kenny. And I was wondering if you could explain Surah 9:123.
What did you say again?
I said I was about to leave, I heard that little that little video where you said so on and so forth. So if you either you or somebody else in the room could just explain Surah 9:123.
Yeah, let me get my glasses. Bear with me 1 second. I don't have my glasses. Bear with me. Brother Ibn Anwar, do you want my glasses while I get my glasses?
And then maybe Ibn Anwar could explain Surah 9:5. And then let's see, Kareem could explain Surah 385.
Okay, well, hold on. Let's go one Surah at a time. Okay. So let's go with Surah 9:121. You said 9:121?
123.
123.
Brother,
Okay.
I think you need to stop screen sharing because the sound is bouncing.
It is. Let me.
You say there's something wrong with my sound?
Well, yeah, Daniel Davis, you're like phasing out in and out. So, I mean, you're like coming in and then you're like phasing out a bit, and then we hear your voice again, and you're fading out again. Could be the connection. But let's wait for Kareem to come back, because this would be an interesting discussion. You've asked, you've asked us to explain to you Surah Tawbah, verse number 123 and verse number 5. What was the other one?
It was verse 5. The other one was Surah 476. Or no, actually 385, right? And then for Surah, 476. And you could throw in Surah 61:4.
There's quite a lot.
Right.
475, was it?
Sorry?
Was that Surah 475? Surah An-Nisa, verse number 75?
76. 476.
Okay.
Okay, Danny, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. Am I still coming in and out?
No, you sound fine right now.
Okay.
We're waiting on Kareem before we get this discussion started. But in regards to Surah, in Surah Tawbah, ayah 123, verse 123, chapter 9, 123. What do you derive from that when you read that?
Oh, well, I see. Let me see here. And this is my my Pickthall translation. I have, "O you who believe, fight those of the disbelievers who are near to you, and let them find harshness in you, and know that Allah is with those who keep their duty unto him." Now, I don't see anything, to me, I don't see anything that says, fight anybody that's the disbelievers that are fighting you. I see it's a command saying, fight the disbelievers who are near you.
Okay, so you bringing up the fact that you are aware that for Muslims, it's important that we fight those who are fighting us first. So you bringing that up is quite interesting, because we still apply that logic to every one of these verses. These verses that mention any type of war or of any kind, any kind of fighting of any kind, are always talking about those who have oppressed the Muslims in some way or some form or fashion, primarily through combat. Okay, so this verse still applies in that context.
Okay. So, excuse me. let me just say that the basis for the wars in the Old Testament is the holiness of God. The objective of these wars was to remove wickedness. And it seems like the opposite is true in Islam. The wars of Allah justify wickedness. Muslims are even permitted to rape the female captives of war, and they are also authorized to engage in banditry with the blessings of Allah.
Stop you there. So where do you get that Muslims are allowed to rape captives? Where do you get this from?
You got Ibn Ishaq, Surat Rasulullah, page 288. Allah divided the booty stolen from the first caravan after he made spoil permissible. He gave forfeits to those who had allowed to take it, and 1/5 to his apostle. Right now, then if you were to go to Sahih Bukhari, volume 8, book 52, number 276, it says, "By Allah, we saw the."
All right. Before you continue, welcome, Camellia. Oh, I've never seen you before, Camellia. Right. So, as Kenny was pointing out to you, right, we understand any verse of the Quran in light of other verses of the Quran. This is a well-known principle of exegesis in the Quran, a maxim in Quranic hermeneutics, if you like. Right? The principle is Al-Quran yufassiru ba'duhu ba'dan. Al-Quran yufassiru ba'duhu ba'dan. That the Quran, one part of it interprets other parts. And indeed, the Quran makes clear that we do not fight people willy-nilly. But the clear-cut verse of the Quran is in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. Very clear. And fight, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and fight on the path of Allah or for the sake of Allah. الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ. Very clear. Those that fight you.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course. But allow me to finish the verse. وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا, do not commit excesses. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. For verily Allah does not love those who commit transgressions, those who exceed. Yeah, go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, now, well, first of all, we could save time because I don't understand Arabic. I know some words here and there.
Sure.
You could verses to me in English, but if you want to read them in Arabic and then translate, that's fine as well. What does that word mean, katilu?
Waqatilu, fight.
It just means fight.
To kill.
It doesn't mean
no, to kill is uktul. To kill is uktul. If I want to command you to kill, the amr there, the fi'l amr there, the command verb there is uktul.
Let me just
go kill.
From Ali Unal, gives the tafsir of this verse. It says there was a relationship between this verse and verse 73. In verse 73, it is ordered that the believers must strive hard in jihad against the unbelievers and the hypocrites and be stern against them. This verse also orders fighting against the unbelievers and being stern against them. When the two verses are considered together, we understand that the unbelievers and hypocrites against whom they ordered the prophet, to strive hard and be stern, were particularly those in and around Medina. Just as the messenger, peace be upon him, was ordered to begin preaching Islam with his nearest kindred in Surah 14, so it is natural that priority in fighting should not be It says, so it is natural that priority in fighting should be given to those who are in the neighborhood and pose an immediate threat. So once again, it's those who pose immediate threat. So this was also inspired by the fact that the very center of Islam had to be secure against every attack. It says, while verse 73 ordered doing jihad against both unbelievers and the hypocrites, and being stern against them. This verse orders fighting against the unbelievers only, and being stern against in particular. This explicitly shows the difference between jihad and fighting qital. Since the hypocrites are legally regarded as Muslims, Muslims are not allowed to fight them unless they cause disorder and dissension and rebel against public order. But the Muslims must do jihad against both the unbelievers and the hypocrites. Okay, so Muslims that includes Muslims, Dan David, not just non-Muslims, but it includes anyone who's causing some type of a calamity in society. Anyone who's causing any type of a
Yeah, Muslims are to come to the aid of people who are being oppressed by others, who are at the verge of extinction, like the Jews, for example, which is why if you refer to professors of history who are of Jewish descent, you will see in their writings these individuals highly regarding what Islam or Muslims did for their ancestors. For if it was not for the Muslims, they would have been decimated by Christians, no less.
Yes,
you must know this, right?
Yes.
So when the Quran says in the verse that you mentioned, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qatilu alladhina yalunakum minal kuffari wal yajidu fikum ghilza wa'lamu anna Allaha ma'al muttaqin. That all you who have believed, that have attained faith, fight those adjacent to you of the kuffar, the disbelievers, and let them find in you sternness, harshness, and know that Allah is with the righteous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is revealed in that context. But the Quran also says in Surah Al-Anfal, in verse number 61, وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَجْنَحْ لَهَا وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Now if they, those that you're fighting, incline towards peace, then فَجْنَحْ لَهَا, and then incline to it also. You are to go to it, run to it. If they janahu lisalmi, if they go towards silm, peace, fajnah, you go to it also. Fajnah laha, you go to it also. Watawakkal ala Allah, and have trust in Allah.
Okay.
So if they show peace, if they start being peaceful, then we are not to fight them. Now even today, right? What did America do? America saw Saddam Hussein, according to them, doing something bad, supposedly planning to do something bad. So what did they do? They intervene. They intervene militarily so as to supposedly impose peace, which is important for everybody. That's what they did, according to them, to bring about peace, right? Although we know that was all a farce, that was all a bunch of lies, right? But in the Islamic perspective, if your neighbor, you see, imagine you're living in a neighborhood, your neighbor is under attack. What do? You keep quiet and go about your business? No. If you, for example, you're a military person, right, and your neighbor is under attack, you just go to bed, do nothing? No, you are expected to do something about it.
Okay, Ibn Anwar.
Yeah.
Who was it that protected Kuwait from Saddam and his army?
Sorry?
Who was it that protected Kuwait from Saddam?
No, I'm not saying that Saddam Hussein was a good person. I'm not saying that. I am saying that America going to war in Iraq, which resulted in the deaths of more than 1 million people.
Sure.
Right, according to the Lancet and other non-biased sources, that was based on a bunch of lies.
Okay.
You know that. That's a fact of history. That's a fact of history. Colin Powell went to the United Nations with a bunch of lies and deceived the entire world into believing that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which they never did.
Right. I
Which he
understand
never did.
that that's a lie. I understand that that's a lie, and I'm not a fan of George W. Bush,
Sure.
senior or junior. You know, I'm not a fan of our current president. Okay, I understand
I'm
that
not a
there's
fan of
all
Saddam
kinds
Hussein either. I don't think
I'm
anyone
definitely not a fan
here
of
is a fan of
Saddam
Saddam
Hussein.
Hussein.
But the point is, was Saddam waging war in the Middle East? And were the Americans
As was
asked to come
America. America, Saddam Hussein. America was waging war in the Middle East before Saddam Hussein ever was there. America went into Iran and instituted a coup. They orchestrated the coup. We know that. This is open. It's not even an open secret. It's something that America is very proud of.
So one thing that needs to be stressed in regards to Surah Tauba, Ayah 123, is in collaboration with verse 73. As Brother Ibn Anwar was stressing, you know, by bringing up the neighbor and defending the neighbor, these verses are also addressing the unbelievers, or not the unbelievers, but also the hypocrites, right? So this means the hypocrites, those who call themselves Muslims, but they may be enacting some type of oppression, or they may be doing wrong in somewhere in society, right? And so the Muslims are supposed to fight against those who oppress others, even if it's other Muslims or so-called Muslims that are engaging in some type of oppression on others. So I think
Exactly.
that needs to be stressed.
Because the principle of Islam is very clear. كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس. That you are the best of people that have come out of mankind. Why? كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. Right? Because you do amar ma'ruf wa nahi munkar, that you call, enjoin to that which is good, and you forbid that which is not good, which is evil. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us a clear directive as to how we go about doing this. How do we go about enjoining good and forbidding evil? If you are in a position of power, the Prophet said, then you have to use your hands, referring to your ability, whatever power that you have, that you possess. So if you are in a position of a chief of police, for example, so you are to execute your position, the position that you occupy, well, in preserving the peace and forbidding that which is evil. You stop the thieves from doing what they want to do, thieving around, etc.
So
but if you do not have that, if you do not have that ability, then you speak against it. This is the second. This is the second tier of forbidding evil and enjoining good. If you do not occupy a position of power legitimately, then the least you can do is speak about it, speak against it. But if you do not have that ability either, perhaps there is an imposition on you in the society that you live, you do not have freedom of speech, then the very least that you can do is you hate it, you disapprove of it in your heart.
So are you saying that there's freedom of speech in Muslim countries?
Well, that's a big difference between actually whether Islam teaches that, right?
Islam teaches freedom. Well, I'm when you brought up, you said something about you're the best of mankind. The first thing I thought of was the verse that says, "You are the best of mankind who bring them with the chains around their neck." What kind of teaching is that?
What did he say?
What was that?
The one, maybe it's the hadith that says, "You are the best of mankind." Is for so on and so forth. For you bring them
even those with chains around their neck, because even those with chains around their neck, we will give them the dignity to accept Islam. That's what it means.
So you would put a chain around somebody's neck and then at the same time mention dignity?
It's that Islam accepts even those with chains around their neck to be true believers.
But it's the Muslims putting the chains around their neck. That's what it says.
It doesn't say put the chains.
Can I give my take on that hadith? I know which one I believe I know which one he's speaking about. So basically the idea of that hadith is similar to what Paul indicated in the New Testament, that slaves, if they find themselves where the institution of slavery cannot be abolished all by in one time, which was impossible for Paul to do, and even during the time of the prophet, it wouldn't have been feasible for the abolishment. However, that hadith basically is making note of the curious case of someone who may go to war with the Muslims and find themselves, because they went to war as a war captive, which happens even in our times, but then he finds himself amongst the Muslims and he sees their attitude towards him. They see them feeding him, they see him treating him well and giving him the dignity that Islam established upon those people in that position. And then he says, you know what, I've come here, fighting these people, but now, by the ordainment of God, it was a means for me to see the truth and what they're upon, and then he becomes a Muslim. So it's a curious situation where a person comes in chains, but he's freed from the worshiping of things of this world into the freedom of worshiping God alone. So it's just making note of a certain circumstance where a war captive finds himself in a greater good even after him being an enemy.
Yeah, and you brought up another verse. Thank you, Kareem, for that beautiful explanation. You brought up another verse, Surah Tawbah, verse number 5, right?
Yeah,
so you
if I
asked
could,
us,
if I could just.
فَاقْتُلُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَيْثُ وَجَدْتُمُوهُم, that fight the idolaters, mushrikeen, wherever you find them. So what do we say to this? Well,
Okay,
if you
hold on.
read the sabab for this verse,
Could you read the whole thing? Could you read the whole thing, or can I read the whole thing?
Yeah, you can read the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, so, but when the forbidden months have passed, fight and slay the pagans wherever you find them, and seize them, surround them, and lie in wait for them with every strategy of war. But if they repent, establish prayer, and give zakat, then open the way for them, for Allah is all forgiving, merciful, mercifully redeeming. Right? And that's the
So yeah, so you are in the habit of citing works of tafsir, right? Earlier you mentioned Ibn Ishaq. So if you refer to all the works of tafsir, it can be Qurtubi, Tabari, etc. You will come to know that this is the sabab, the reason for this revelation is in reference to a particular historical episode that those among the Meccan confederates who allied themselves with the idolaters, basically the idolaters and their friends, breached the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, which basically led to Fatah Mecca, the victory of Mecca. And so the Mufassirin and the Fuqaha will teach us that by itself, because it is in reference to a particular and specific historical circumstance, by itself, no legal ruling can be taken from it. And the divine irony that comes from this verse is that حَيْثُ وَجَدْتُمُوهُمْ, wherever you find them, which meant, I'm getting feedback, subhanallah, which the Mufassirin explain, right? The interpreters explain, is in reference to the location, the place. Attack them whether inside the haram, inside the sacred precinct, or outside of it. Why? Because it was understood by both the Muslims and the idolaters at the time that the immediate vicinity of the Kaaba, which we call the Masjid al-Haram today, was a sacred place where fighting was not to occur. This was something that was agreed by the idolaters and the Muslims. So this understanding was lifted by this verse, that now there is permission for you to fight them even within that within the perimeter, the immediate perimeters of the Kaaba, although it was once perceived to be sacred where fighting must not occur. But the divine irony of this permission is that no such fighting occurred around that area or outside of that area. That victory happened in the Fatah Mecca, in the victory of Mecca, without a single battle, Ghazwa, ever actually taking place. What happened actually was وَمَنٌ عَلَيْهِ بِتَخْلِيَةِ سَبِيلِهِ أَوْ نَهَى عَنْ سَفْكِ الدِّمَّ. That there was general amnesty for the Arabs, for the idolaters, all of them basically. And with regards to the term mushrikeen, specifically, according to the ijma of the or rather the jumhur of the position of the mufassirin, is specifically in reference to those who breached the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and nakifina khassatan, says An-Nawawi, Imam An-Nawawi. And Qadi ibn Arabi basically says alladhina yuharribunakum, that those who declared war against you. And if you refer to Al-Jassas in his Ahkam al-Quran, very clearly, khassan fi mushriki al-Arabi, duna ghayrihim, specifically the idolatrous Arabs, duna ghayrihim, and not anyone else. And this is very important, duna ghayrihim. This is explained by Al-Jassas in his Ahkam al-Quran, right? And as for the meaning, and finally, as for the meaning of An-Nas in Kareem, I heard you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, you said finally. So you can. Yeah, I had a question for Danny, but Daniel, sorry. I just want to know what's his contention. Yes, after you get done, what's his contention with these verses? Because I know he brought up 2 verses. I had to leave, but I want to know: is it that he finds it immoral that God would command people to kill people? Is that his stance?
Yeah, really quick, I'll answer that, and then I actually have to go as well. I'll still listen to you guys, but I got to hit the road. I find it immoral. As I stated earlier, the fighting and stuff that occurred in the Old Testament, there was a reason for it. Okay, and the reason wasn't just because people didn't believe in their God.
Wait. Stop right there. So you're saying there wasn't a penalty for Jews turning away from the one God?
Okay, well, if I could just, if you could give me a second. So as I was saying, it's unlike the wars in the Old Testament, the wars of Allah are open-ended, in my opinion. Thus, the wars of Allah will continue until Islam subjugates the entire world and reigns supreme. The authorization to destroy the Canaanites is not because they were pagans, but because of their extreme depravity.
Right. That's assuming I was talking about. I mean, in general, is there a law that a Jew, basically what I'm saying is that, is there religious freedom according to Yahweh, which includes Jesus, in the Old Testament? Or were Jews commanded that if they turn away from Yahweh, they will be killed?
Yeah, they were commanded if they turn away, just the Jews, right? Not the
so they had so Jesus did not allow them religious freedom, just like our God does not allow us to turn away from Islam without there being a trial in front of a judge and a teaching trying to get this person. It's the same thing, brother. You have a death penalty for apostasy, and Jesus was okay with that for thousands of years.
They did turn away from God in several occasions. Okay, and the fact
in fact, Deuteronomy 13:2, with regards to that, Deuteronomy 13:2 is very clear, and you will not find anything even close to this in the Quran, in the entire Quran. What does the verse say? And if the sign or wonder spoken of takes place, and the prophet says, "Let us follow other gods and let us worship them." Continuing to verse number 3, you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer, for the Lord your God is testing you to find out whether you love him with all your heart and with all your soul, etc. And then what is to happen to that prophet?
He's to be killed.
Exactly.
For sure. That's somebody. That's God's command. Again, somebody trying to turn his people away from their religion. Okay,
but where's religious freedom there?
As the Old Testament, I'm sure you guys are aware. In the beginning, Israel is, the Jewish nation. That's God's chosen people. Okay, now and since Jesus has come, and he's preached to the Gentiles, or had his apostles preach to the Gentiles, we see that the message is for all mankind. But with regards to that, the Old Testament, the Old Covenant that was given to the Jews in the Old Testament, that covenant is no longer in place once Jesus came with the New Covenant, which is the New Testament and his laws.
Yeah, but your reasoning earlier was that the difference between, although the reasoning is very faulty, because that's not why as we have illustrated to you. That's not why the Quran permits Muslims to take up arms to defend themselves, to defend those who need to be defended. Right? You say that just because you do not believe, then you are to be fought. This is something that actually the Bible teaches.
Okay, but
you must
not
have read Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse number 11.
No, I have, but
After
as I was saying,
after you kill those who tempted you, all the Israelites will hear about it, and they will be too scared to do an evil thing like that again.
Okay,
so
but
you are to kill anyone that brings anything that is contrary to what you believe. If they preach to you, you must kill them. And this is important so that other people will learn about it and get scared about it and will not do the same thing. Yeah,
you have to understand as well, Brother Anwar, that the Old Testament for the Jews, they believe in the ruling of violence and killing and so on. So like you mentioned Deuteronomy, when Christians say, but the new covenant says it, that's the Christians. We're not talking about what the Christians are saying now. We're sticking to the Bible, the Old Testament, Psalm 119. Everything.
Mustafa, I'm a Christian.
Yeah, so who cares what you think? I'm just saying that your Bible states that. So you can't just turn around and say the old covenant, the new covenant. That means you're dismissing what Yahweh said in Psalm 119, which is his words are they last forever. So saying yeah, so if you say his words don't last forever, so when he makes rulings about what should be done as punishment to people, listen to me, Daniel. When he makes rulings of what should be done as punishment to nations and people, that's hudud. That means they have to be followed, or else Deuteronomy 28 says that if the Jews, the Bani Israel, they don't follow it, then they will be under the curse of God, and so much will happen to them. So
that is correct. That was for Bani Israel.
Yeah, exactly. So we're talking about, so the Jews, they're still alive. They're still alive. The Bani Israel are still here. So you when you say the Bible, my Bible, no, your Bible still has portions where the Bani Israel still follow it. And when you go to a synagogue, they don't have the New Testament inside there. They only have.
Sorry, Mustafa, that's not true. Nobody is to follow the Old Testament anymore. Nobody.
Who said? According to who? A Jew? Which Jew said you can't follow the Old
Testament? Nobody is to follow the New Testament. That doesn't make sense. So you do not follow Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You do not follow that.
Well, of course, we follow that. I'm talking about the laws that were given.
Well, is that
okay? That's fine. Bil Anwar, that's fine, Brother Anwar. Listen, Brother Anwar, the law says that you shouldn't marry your mother, and the New Testament doesn't say that. So Daniel can marry his mom then. He has no way to say he can't.
Come on, Mustafa. That's
no, but Daniel, listen. I'm going to stop you there for a second. You said you don't have to follow the Old Testament law. The Old Testament said you can't marry your mother. We know that.
Not all of the laws.
Yeah,
not all.
No. The New Testament don't say you can't do it. So I'm going to presume that you're allowed to marry your mom now.
Okay, so right? Some of the laws are just obvious common laws. Other laws we
don't give me common laws. You just dismissed it.
Mustafa, yeah, let's allow him to let's allow him to articulate why he thinks some laws are to be followed and some others are not. You just said those laws are obviously something. So why is it obvious? What makes it obvious? Your own reasoning, or is it something that you have derived from the New Testament?
Yes, because of the Sermon on the Mount. Just like, it said, you have heard it's been said, an eye for an eye, but I tell you, right? So that's a changing in one of the laws right there.
So that's, okay, so that's an eye for an eye. That's just one thing. So there's more than 300 laws there. So why an eye and eye? So you've only dealt with one article. Okay. So what about the others?
Like I said, I do have to go, so I can't go through all of them. But another one is eating pork.
Yeah, okay. Get lost because you just exposed your Bible and yourself as well. Get lost because 630 laws. Which one has your Jesus expounded on? He only made a few.
All right. Well, hey, you gentlemen have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, David.
Faisal,
thank you.
I hope the family's well. I hope all of you are doing well. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one.
Okay. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Talk to you again. Thank you. Take care. And all the best. Inshallah, you'll come to Islam.
Now, let me mention one thing because he said he's still listening. See, here's the thing. The real heart of what he wanted to talk about goes back to what I asked him. Does he believe that God ordering the killing of people is immoral? He said yes, which was not true because then he goes on to say that no, the killing in the Old Testament was okay because of the reason. His biggest thing is he just doesn't agree with the reasons that the wars in Islam occur. He just doesn't agree with the reasons. That's basically what it comes down to, because in reality, he can never say that God ordering people to kill was immoral, because it's all over the Jesus did it. Jesus did it to the point where I guess he ordered Moses now to kill like thousands of Jews in one day, because when he came down from the mountain. So, and just in the narrative of the Old Testament, I think it always brings more problems from them than they bring for us, because then you have to answer, how is it that you guys are so up in arms about religious freedom, but Jesus would have thousands of people killed in one instant for turning away from their faith. So their ideology is filled with this type of killing
Yeah,
for the slightest reason, but then
exactly.
they only
So
focus in on Quranic verses without.
exactly. And so the text that I gave him, and if you look at the context of that verse 11, which starts from verse number 6 and ends at verse number 11, this is like a manual on a very detailed manual on how you go about dealing with evangelists from other religions, tempting you to abandon yours, to abandon your faith and embrace something else. So it begins with verse number 6. So I hope he's listening, and the other viewers also. In Deuteronomy chapter number 13, verse number 6. Suppose, this is from the NIRV, suppose your very own brother or sister secretly tempts you to do something wrong, or your child or the wife you love tempts you, or your closest friends does it. Suppose one of them says, let's go and worship other gods, but you and your people of long ago hadn't known anything about those gods before. They are the gods of the nations around you. Those nations might be near or far away. In fact, they might reach from one end of the land to the other. Don't give in to those who are tempting you. Do not listen to them. Do not feel sorry for them. Do not spare them or save them. You must absolutely or certainly put them to death. You must be the first to throw stones at them. Then all the people must do the same thing. Put them to death by throwing stones at them. They tried to turn you away from the Lord your God. He brought you out of Egypt. That's the land where you were slaves. After you kill those who tempted you, all the Israelites will hear about it, and they will be too scared to do an evil thing like that ever again.
And that's the thing, brother. It doesn't get any clearer than that. And you know what's funny? I have a video up on my channel where a guy has a Bible where he replaced the cover of it with the Quran.
Oh yeah,
And he
I've
read
seen
this
that.
verse. He read this
The Bible
verse and
experiment.
he got the reaction. And the people
Yeah.
are like, this is unbelievable. This is the lowest thing you could, what do you and then he takes it off and it's the Bible. This is the type of stuff that they try to throw on us, and they don't. When they point one finger, they have four pointing back at them. That's what's going on.
So we have Brother Faisal and Brother Mustafa. Obviously, Brother Mustafa already spoke, but brothers. And Camellia, also. Let me unmute.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Kenny. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, all brothers.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's very good to hear from you. Inshallah, everything is doing well there.
Alhamdulillah, everything's good. I hope everything's good at your end as well, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah, that's far. Alhamdulillah. Qadar Allah wa
Just getting a little bit of feedback.
But let me also say something that I did notice in the tone and in the approach of Daniel Davis, that he was. It seemed like he put the games to the side and he was coming humbly to ask, and he didn't get excited about. So I really appreciated that, and I hope he's okay and has a fine rest of his day.
Yeah. He seems much better today, more level-headed.
I told him on YouTube that he wasn't going to come in today because you know, he's because of his bad manners usually, but yeah, I mean, if they can come in and hold a decent conversation, that's not a problem, inshallah. I mean, that's the goal of this platform anyway, is to have these people come in and actually engage in a civil dialogue. And as long as they can do that, Danny Davis, if you're listening, we commend you. You did come in like a gentleman, and you're welcome to come back. As long as you come in, doesn't matter what your argument is. You can come in, give a difficult argument if you like, but do it in a respectful manner. That's all we ask, inshallah.
Yes.
So,
Alhamdulillah.
okay.
Well, alhamdulillah. I think that that may be a good time right now to unless anyone has any concerns. I know Brother Mustafa just came, unfortunately. I don't want to end now that he just came. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Mustafa.
Yeah, I just like to add something that although we have the hudud in the Sharia, right, which is a very small, it's just a fraction of the entirety of the Sharia. Non-Muslims make it out to seem like Muslims are so adamant to have it. You know, that we are so obsessed with these sorts of legalistic punishments. But that is not the case if we really understood Islam. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Idfa'ul hudud ma jattum lahu madfa." That he says, with regards to the hudud, the word is used here. Avoid applying the hudud as long as you can find an excuse to avoid them.
Right.
And this hadith is Hasan, and there are numerous other such narrations. Suspend the hudud, says the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam elsewhere. If you can find an excuse to let the person go, find that excuse. The purpose of the hudud is not so as to impose punishments on every infraction possible. That is found stipulated in the hudud. That is not the case. One of the Khulafa, I think it was Umar. Yeah, it was Umar radiallahu anh. And it was regarding an incident that the other Muslims, his companions, witnessed someone committing adultery. So they came to Umar, and three of them went on with the story. One of them refused to continue, and so 4 witnesses were not available. So what was the result? Umar ordered them to, although they actually saw what happened, but one of them he didn't even want to go through with it, although at the beginning they all agreed that they would bear witness to what they saw. So Umar commanded that all of them to get flogged as per the dictates of the Quran, that if you bear witness and you against the chastity of a woman and do not produce 4 witnesses, then you are to be flogged. So one of them said to Umar, we did indeed see what we saw. Why are you punishing us? And I don't remember the whole thing, but then he said, one of the things that he said, is it because you do not want to impose the punishment of Allah? And Umar actually said yes. And
right.
What did Umar say after that? He said the purpose of the hudud is not to punish, it is so that people have taqwa, basically.
Right.
Yeah, the purpose is not for Muslims to go around and look for people committing errors and
right.
Let's bring you to the judge and let's get you punished. That's not the purpose of the hudud at all.
Absolutely.
That non-Muslims unfortunately do not understand, and sadly some Muslims do not grasp either.
Right. Now, let me also say one last thing that was striking before we I'm not sure if we're going to be going soon, but he said one thing that was concerning. I didn't have the time to stop him right then, but he said he said that basically, and I may be misquoting him, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. He said that basically he's concerned that with these verses, that Muslims are pretty much commanded until the day of judgment to wage war into the whole. Did anyone else hear him say that? Until the whole world is submitting to Islam. So,
yeah, he did say that. Yeah.
right. So maybe that could be a nice subject for the next discussion. Is Islam out for world domination or something? Because people have that notion, even though the reality, just on the ground, the reality is not that. Because if it really was, I mean, statistically, I think there would be a lot more violence going on in the world from one fourth of the world's population if we're really commanded to wage war. It would be the statistics. Just the reality, belies what he may think. But maybe that's a good one to speak about because he had that as a concern. He verbalized it, and maybe he really feels that way.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. He does feel that way, and most people, the Christian friends, they do believe this way. They think it's legitimate and it's a true concern. It's a true phobia, hence the word Islamophobia. It's real, and this deep-rooted fear is just, it's there, and many of them will claim that they don't fear, while at the same time talking about the very things that they fear. I've had many of them, do the exact same thing. Talking about these Sharia law and all these things. They say in one breath that they believe that Muslims have this agenda. In the next breath, they'll say they don't fear Islam. Well, you're talking about things that indicate that you do fear Islam. You think that these things are part of what we're taught as Muslims. And that's the fact of the matter. Deep rooted, and it's a shame. It's a shame. So I'm ready to call it a day. Personally, I've got things I need to do. I want to eat dinner and all that. Inshallah. So, you want to keep the room open, or you want to end it here?
I'm gonna get going also, inshallah.
If you guys are going.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's end it here. We'll do it again tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about what Kareem said. We'll talk about war and the Islamic stance on fighting those who fight us. And we'll take it from there, inshallah. I'm a little bit tired right now myself. So I thank everyone for joining the panel. This is Kenny Bowmer Live. Consider this TV where truth is made clear from falsehood. And we were discussing, well, actually, the discussion for today was Ask a Muslim. This was session 3. And we invite people to come, inshallah, for the every session for that matter, but primarily non-Muslims who would like to come in and engage and ask difficult questions about Islam. We're trying to break down all the misconceptions and misunderstandings and to answer any questions that we can. Inshallah, we'll find someone who can answer them, inshallah, God willing. So I thank you for listening, and I'd like to leave you all by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I do bear witness there's no God other than Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the final servant, the seal of our prophets. If you'd like to join the panel, like Camellia, look me up on Facebook, send me a friend request, and let me know, send me a message, and let me know that you do want to be tagged in the post for the shows, and I'll be sure to try to, inshallah, God willing, I'll try to make sure I tag you in the post. That way you can join the panel, inshallah, God willing. So I do encourage everyone listening to hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, hit like, share it with other people so we can grow the platform, and click on the Patreon link. It's a form of sadaqat jariyah, perpetual blessing for the day of judgment for anyone that we guide to the truth and the beauty of Islam. All good comes from Allah. Any mistakes that we make on the panel are ours and ours alone. Primarily, any mistakes I make, it's all on me. Obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes no mistakes. All goodness comes from Allah and Allah alone. And so I pray that He has mercy on each and every one of us on the day of judgment. So I'll leave you by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.